In the land of Israel, in a small village nestled between rolling green hills, there lived a young shepherd boy named David. He was no ordinary boy. He had a heart full of courage and a faith as strong as the mighty mountains. Every day he watched over his father's sheep, guiding them safely through the fields. One day, as he played his harp under an old oak tree, he looked up at the sky and whispered, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be afraid." Suddenly, David heard a loud roar. From behind the bushes, a huge lion appeared, its golden mane flowing like fire. The sheep panicked, but David stood firm. Gripping his sling, he picked up a smooth stone from the ground. "The Lord is with me," he whispered. With one swift motion, he flung the stone, and it struck the lion on the forehead. The beast staggered and then fled into the forest. One day, David's father, Jesse, called him inside. "David, take this basket of bread and cheese to your brothers at the battlefield. They are fighting in King Saul's army." Excited but curious, David picked up the basket and rushed off toward the Israelite camp, his heart pounding with anticipation. When David arrived, he heard a booming voice shake the valley. "I am Goliath, champion of the Philistines." Across the valley stood a giant warrior covered in bronze armor. His shield was as big as a door, and his spear was taller than a man. "Send me a man to fight. If he wins, we will serve you. But if I win, you will serve us." But no one in King Saul's army dared to face him. The soldiers trembled, their hands gripping their swords in fear. David, confused by the fear in the camp, asked, "Why is everyone afraid? The Lord is with us." His older brother Eliab scolded him, "Go home, David. You're just a shepherd boy." But David wasn't discouraged. He turned to the other soldiers. "I will fight this giant." The soldiers laughed, but someone told King Saul, and soon David was standing before the king. Inside the royal tent, King Saul looked at David with doubt. "You're just a boy, and he is a warrior." But David stood firm. "I have fought lions and bears. The Lord saved me then, and he will save me now." King Saul hesitated, then nodded. "Go, and may the Lord be with you." King Saul offered David his own armor, but it was too big. The helmet covered David's eyes, and the breastplate made it hard to walk. David laughed, shaking his head. "I don't need this. The Lord is my strength." He picked up his sling and 5 smooth stones from a brook. David stepped onto the battlefield. Goliath squinted at him and laughed. "You send a boy to fight me? I will crush him like an insect." But David stood tall. "You come with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the Lord." David stepped forward, gripping his sling tightly. The ground felt firm beneath his feet, but the air was thick with tension. Across the valley, Goliath stood like a mountain of armor and muscle, his deep laughter booming through the battlefield. He repeated, "Is this a joke? Do you send a child to fight me?" David took a deep breath, his heart pounding, but his faith never wavered. Goliath's expression changed. His amusement turned into rage. With a loud battle cry, he charged forward, his massive spear raised high. The ground trembled with each step, dust swirling in his wake. The Israelite soldiers gasped and turned away, certain that David was doomed. But David did not flinch. He reached into his pouch, pulled out a smooth stone, and placed it in his sling. David took a deep breath. Time seemed to slow as he swung his sling above his head. The stone whirled through the air, faster and faster. The Philistine army laughed. The Israelite soldiers closed their eyes, and Goliath's mocking grin remained until thwack! The stone struck Goliath's forehead, sinking deep into his skull. The giant staggered, his mighty legs trembling. For a moment, the entire battlefield was silent. Goliath's eyes widened, and his arms flailed as he lost balance. Then, like a great tree being chopped down, the mighty giant toppled forward. Boom! The ground shook as he hit the earth, dust rising around his enormous body. The Philistines gasped, their unbeatable warrior defeated by a single stone. David stood tall, looking at the fallen giant. He took Goliath's own sword and raised it high for everyone to see. The Israelite soldiers erupted in cheers. David has won. The Lord has given us victory. But the Philistine soldiers, they turned and ran for their lives. Seeing their enemy on the run, King Saul and his men charged forward. The Philistines, once so proud, scattered like leaves in the wind, dropping their weapons as they fled. It was a complete victory, and David's faith in God had won the battle. When David returned to the Israelite camp, the soldiers lifted him onto their shoulders, chanting his name. David! David! The shepherd boy who defeated the giant. Back at the palace, King Saul summoned David. "You have done what no man could do," the king said. "You will stay in my service and play your harp for me." David's story teaches us faith is stronger than fear. Courage comes from trusting in God. Even the smallest person can defeat the biggest challenge. And so David's journey continued from a shepherd boy to a warrior to one day becoming king of Israel. But it all started with faith and courage. David's story shows us that faith and courage can overcome even the greatest challenges. No matter how big the giants in your life may seem, trust, stand strong, and never be afraid to face them. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends and family. Let's spread faith and courage together. See you in the next story.